Okay, I'm on to the highlights now for this Eltharion figure. And the first one I'm going for is the Auric Gold, or the Auric Armour Gold colour. And this one really does add that final shine to the golds. Don't have to be too heavy with it. I'll kind of just add something. Really trying to be careful now, especially with these sections of outlining in the gold. Don't want to be going over the edge here too much. You can always fix it if you do, but it's a bit of an inconvenience when you've got to go back to a previous colour. Just trying to get some of this gold highlight onto the gem surrounds without making too much of a mess. Try to make sure both hands are resting on the desk. To try and keep it as steady as I can. Just trying to get some of this highlight on the edges of the helmet. Okay, there we go. For the Auric Armour Gold, just adds that final highlight. Really brings it out. You're now using the Eltharion blue to start getting the blue sections highlighted. Really starts to make a difference now. And in each case I'm just going to go right back and add a bit more for the plate armour. Difficult to highlight this, but what I've done on the other side at least is just almost dot in each piece, but don't want to get too carried away with it. So they're pretty small shapes and not that well defined. You can see I'm using the small brush for this. And then right back again to add some more. Just working up on the headdress now with these large feather shapes. It's with this second pass that the blue starts to strengthen and look the part. Just added a little bit of white scar into that mix with the Eltharion blue. Gives this a nice highlight to add in. I think I'm just going to paint a miniature like this for each of the colours now. Just work on each colour on its own to completion, just to start checking them off the list. And you can go as light as you want. This brush I'm using is starting to, the bristles are starting to come out now when I clean it. It's kind of coming to the end of its useful life here, but as it does so, it becomes more of a finer and finer tip brush, which can be sort of handy at this stage. And again, just adding a bit more white into that mix. Don't want to go too bright. Just on the tips of these shapes. If you feel that any of the highlights are a bit too heavy, just come back to the mid layer, in this case Techless Blue. You can just, with it quite well thinned down, you can just sharpen up the highlight a small amount. You can just improve it, just blends it in a bit more. Just for those areas where you've maybe been a little bit too heavy. And it's the same with the highlight colour. Just come in with a watered down version of it. Smooth out that gradient. Yeah, so now on to the Wild Rider Red. And just trying to get some of that in the upper areas of the backrest cushions. We'll be able to neaten up the highlight with some of the Evil Sun's Scarlet after this. Right now it's just a case of getting the Wild Rider Red on in the right areas. Just doing a second pass at the moment to build that up. And there's a number of other areas. Gems looking okay. Don't need too much more there. Be highlighting them into an orange and yellow later. I've gone quite heavy on the gloves. That's okay. I'm gonna go back into it and work some of the Evil Sun's Scarlet back in. Main thing is just to get all the raised areas highlighted. Get the fingers done. A couple of passes. Okay, so that's the Wild Rider Red down. Okay, so I've got some of that Evil Sun's Scarlet on the wet palette, so it's quite thin. That means I can just paint it on in the areas where the Wild Rider Red has been applied, and I can just kind of blend it in better. And then especially so on the gloves, where I can paint up near to the edge, leaving some of that Wild Rider Red. Some Troll Slayer orange now that I've been putting on, just to push the red highlight a bit further. I'm not going to use it everywhere, just here and there, certainly on the gems, at the bottom of the gems. To help them look a bit more gem-like. Just add a final highlight on the red in the backrest, just here and there. Doesn't have to be too exact. Mainly just aiming for the knuckles now on the fingers in terms of a further highlight. I've got the other reds also looked out and still on the palette, so I can just mix in some paint when I need it for a different colour, which is the advantage of the wet palette for this. Just trying to add a little bit of highlighting if I can around the edges of the glove without going too far over. Then I've still got some of the Fire Dragon Bright to come back in for a top highlight on the red items. Okay, so that's the red complete, barring any mistakes that need fixing. I think that'll do. Now onto the white with White Scar. Just trying to be nice and neat as this will finish off most of the painting for the larger areas. I've already been on the skirt section there and added some finer lines as a highlight. Do a little bit of edge highlighting on the quiver for the arrows. Maybe just up around the neck of the bow. Just a little bit of a highlight on the spear shaft. It's nice and bright as it is. Depending on the white balance of the video, it might be difficult to see some of what I'm doing. And then finally up on the helmet now. Just trying to favour one side if possible. And hopefully this will just lift the whites alongside those blues. Flash gets yellow now, just to complete the yellow sections. And I do have the white there in the palette if I want to use a bit of white to brighten it up further. You can see how it looks. And then on the runes, nice and careful, and I think a couple of passes just to bring that out, and then maybe a little bit of the white mixed in. Just going in with some of that yellow on the gems now. Just a subtle little yellow highlight on the lower end of them. Nice fine brush for that. Yeah, just a little bit of Ungor flesh to highlight these pouches. Okay, just about finished now with this lower part of the model. Last thing I'm doing now is dotting in the metal studs, a bit of runefang steel. Now one of the last tasks to do on the lower half of the model is dealing with that red stripe on the white cloth or the skirt area. It's a freehand stripe, so there's no part of the model there's no relief shape to use to paint along, so it's just going to be a bit of freehand. And then following on from that, whoever did the original model decided to do sets of red stripes up along the spear shaft, so going to try and mimic that if I can. So that'll be the next task. So I'm just painting in this red line. I've been following along with the bottom edge to help guide me. And I'm using Evil Sun's Scarlet for this. Definitely with the paint out onto the palette where you can thin it down. Slightly nerve-wracking doing this onto the white base because I don't really want to make a mistake at this stage. Okay, that's not too bad on that side. I've brought my light down quite close to the model. It may blow out the white balance on the model, but I need to see what I'm doing. It's good to have a light on a flexible neck because it means you can bring it in nice and close to what you're working on. The closer in that light is, the better you'll see it. And then moving on to the other side, try and get them to kind of be similar. Just be sure to turn the miniature to suit the direction of flow in terms of painting this. With those stripes on, that's the lower part of the model now complete in terms of getting it painted, and that is a relief to get to that stage. Overall it's looking okay. Okay, now for the red stripes on the spear. So it's in pairs of 2. You'll have to excuse me if I get my hands in the way of this, more than usual. But there's always jobs when you're painting a miniature like this that you're kind of dreading because you know it's going to be difficult. Or at least it's happening at a time when you don't want to be making mistakes. And this is one of those times. Just gauging it by looking at the photos in the army book. So that's them started there. And it's a case of rotating the miniature around, trying to keep them reasonably straight. And here's when we find out if our lines are going to meet up on the reverse side, which kind of look like they will. Yeah, I'd say the wet palette is pretty essential, especially for things like this, where you want the paint to go nice and smooth, come off the brush easily. Don't really want to mess around with them too much. Okay, I think that'll do for those stripes. I'm glad to get that done. Just remembering to do the hair now. Thinking of using some of this kind of bluey grey colour, Dark Reaper it's called. Just to highlight the hair with something other than what would be a grey, an outright grey. I thought I would try just using something with a bit of blue in it. And it's not a dry brush, I'm just using the edge of the brush just to try and catch the high areas. Not with too much on the brush at one time. Trying to at least prevent it from going down in all the grooves. And then maybe some Stegadon scale green. And then lastly, a little bit of Sotek green. And now for adding a little bit of silver to the sword, or at least on the edge of the sword. A tiny amount of Runefang steel. So my plan is to just with the edge of the brush to rub along the edge of the sword, and can always add more, so I'm just going to take it easy because I don't want to go too heavy. And I'll just turn the miniature to suit what I'm doing. Mainly focusing this up on the tip of the sword. So in terms of painting, just really got the face to work on now. Got some squig orange. I just want to get some of that on the bottom lip. And I've got some other of the flesh colours, like Bugman's Glow. Just kind of darker tone. And I'm using these quite well thinned. I'm just looking to neaten things up where I can with these colours. I know I've already got the kind of basic skin tone in place after using the Gilman Flesh tone, or the Gilman Flesh contrast paint, but using that as a guide, the contrast paint, you can go back in and do a little bit more with it. And then moving up to the Kislev Flesh. Not much room to work with on these high elf miniatures. And then if you do want to highlight it beyond that, I just use the Pallid Witch Flesh as a kind of substitute for using white. Okay, I think that'll do it for the face. Just need to put in a couple of dots of colour now for the eyes. Just using something on the palette already. I think this is the Sotek green, nice sort of bright bluey green colour. Okay, I think that'll do it for the eyes. It's always really difficult. I Like I say, I don't ever use black for the pupils or the dots in the eyes. I think it's just too strong. I think using a colour makes it more interesting, slightly more subtle, and after a little bit of finessing back and forth, kinda looks okay. Okay, I've given both pieces a spray of Monitorum varnish. Now I'm just using some gloss to complete the gems. This gem here, I noticed in the photography that the original had a green gem here, so I've changed it just to get the right colour. There's been a lot of painting in this miniature, and it's really good to get to the end of it. Just got to worry now about how to glue the two parts together, or at least get them off of these sticks that they're currently glued to without damaging anything. Yeah, so checking in with the original in the army book for the Eltharion, at least, just to see how I've done. And that's the reminder of what I was trying to achieve. Obviously Stormwing has not been painted yet. Here's the painted, completed Eltharion miniature. I think overall I'm happy with the colour scheme. I've at least tried to capture what's shown in the army book. All the different colours I've used seem pretty close to it. And yeah, I'm happy with that. So next steps will be to paint Stormwing so I can glue him down and get this thing finished entirely. But for the time being, thanks very much for watching.